In the vast expanse of the universe, where every star, planet, and comet moves with a purpose dictated by the fundamental laws of physics, there exists a mystery that has puzzled scientists for decades. Picture this: a spacecraft, the Pioneer 10, launched in 1972 to explore the outer limits of our solar system, traveling farther than any human-made object before it. But as it pushed deeper into the cosmic void, something strange began to happen. The spacecraft, despite all expectations, was behaving differently. Its trajectory was slightly off. A small but measurable deviation in its path was detected, and it wasn't explained by the forces we understand, like gravity or the pressure of sunlight. Scientists were left with an unsettling question: what was causing this anomaly? In today's video, we're diving deep into the mystery of the Pioneer Anomaly, one of the most puzzling discoveries in modern space exploration. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have an answer to one of the greatest space mysteries that have left scientists scratching their heads for over 40 years. But be warned, the truth might be more shocking than you can imagine. You're about to witness the unraveling of something truly remarkable. When we look up at the night sky, we see stars twinkling, planets orbiting their suns, and comets streaking across the heavens. For centuries, humanity has tried to understand the mechanics behind it all. Newton's laws of motion, Kepler's laws of planetary motion, and Einstein's theory of relativity all gave us the building blocks to understand how objects in space move and interact with one another. Yet, as we began to venture further from Earth, those laws started to show their limits. The Pioneer Anomaly wasn't just a tiny glitch or an isolated incident. It was a crack in the foundation of how we think the universe works. And what happened with Pioneer 10 wasn't just a case of, oops, the math was wrong. No, it was a situation that raised serious questions. Could there be unknown forces at play in the cosmos? Forces that challenge everything we know about space, time, and the very fabric of the universe itself? Imagine discovering a hidden force out there, operating on a level that we've never seen or felt before. Could this discovery unlock secrets not just about the universe, but about our very place in it? Keep watching, because what we uncover in the coming minutes might change everything you thought you knew about the cosmos. Now, let's step back and look at the Pioneer spacecraft itself. In 1972, NASA launched the Pioneer 10 mission, sending it on a journey into the unknown. The goal was simple: explore Jupiter and then continue into the vast, uncharted territory of interstellar space. This spacecraft was designed to be a trailblazer, pushing humanity's boundaries further than ever before. It was equipped with scientific instruments to gather data and send it back to Earth, providing valuable insights into the outer reaches of our solar system. However, as Pioneer 10 ventured deeper into space, scientists at NASA began to notice something odd. The spacecraft, despite being millions of miles away from any significant gravitational influence, was gradually slowing down, yet it wasn't supposed to be. As its journey took it farther from the sun, the force of sunlight's pressure on the spacecraft should have had a diminishing effect. The spacecraft should have continued its path, unaffected by any forces we knew of. But Pioneer 10 wasn't following the expected trajectory. It was moving just a tiny bit slower than predicted. At first, this seemed like a small glitch, a minor miscalculation in the mission's complex calculations. But as the years went on, the anomaly became harder to ignore. The spacecraft was still off course, still moving at a pace that defied our understanding of physics. As scientists pored over the data, they couldn't find an explanation that made sense. Could the spacecraft be reacting to some unknown form of energy? Or was there some hidden force at work in the deep reaches of space, far beyond our understanding? We know that gravity from large objects like the sun and planets affects the movement of spacecraft, and we know that sunlight exerts pressure on objects in space. But neither of these forces seemed to be enough to explain the unexpected deceleration of Pioneer 10. And that's when things got truly intriguing. You see, Pioneer 10 wasn't the only spacecraft to show signs of this strange anomaly. The Pioneer 11 spacecraft, launched in 1973, started to show the same unexpected behavior just a year later. The pattern was undeniable. These two spacecraft, separated by years of travel and thousands of miles, were both experiencing this bizarre, unexplained force. Was it just a coincidence, or was something far more extraordinary happening? If it wasn't a flaw in the spacecraft or an error in the data, what could be causing this anomaly? In the search for answers, scientists were forced to venture into some rather strange and controversial territory. Were we looking at a mistake in our calculations, or was there something fundamental about space that we simply didn't understand? What if, hidden in the depths of the universe, there was an unknown force or effect that we had yet to discover? Could the Pioneer anomaly be a sign that we were about to unlock something far more profound than any of us could imagine? In this video, we're going to explore some of the theories that scientists have proposed to explain the anomaly. Some are grounded in science, while others take us into the realm of speculation and mystery. Could it be a new form of dark matter or dark energy? Maybe a previously undetected interaction between gravity and quantum mechanics? Or could it be that the laws of physics themselves need to be rewritten? To make matters even more intriguing, in 2012, the Pioneer 10 spacecraft sent its last signal back to Earth, its power dwindling as it traveled deeper into the galaxy. But even after its final transmission, the mystery remained unsolved. It's one of the great unsolved questions in the history of space exploration. How could something so small, so seemingly insignificant, challenge the vast understanding we have of our universe? As we continue this journey through the Pioneer anomaly, I want you to think about the possibilities. We may be on the brink of a new era in space exploration, one that could fundamentally change how we look at everything. But to get there, we must first answer a question that has haunted scientists for decades. What is causing this strange, unexplained force? Is it an error in our calculations, or does it signify something far more extraordinary? Keep watching as we dive deeper into the scientific theories, the controversies, and the unanswered questions that surround this perplexing anomaly. The deeper we go, the more bizarre and unsettling the possibilities become. Stay with me, because I promise you, the truth is far stranger than anything you've imagined. But before we get to the heart of the mystery, there's one final twist you need to know. The truth behind the Pioneer anomaly might not just explain the mysteries of space, but might also reveal the very nature of the universe itself. So, what do you think? Could there be forces at work in space that we have yet to discover? Forces that could change everything? Let's dive deeper into the unknown. Together, as we continue our deep dive into the Pioneer anomaly, it's important to understand the context behind this mysterious event. Imagine the people behind the Pioneer missions, scientists and engineers working tirelessly to send these spacecraft into the furthest reaches of the solar system. They had one goal: to push the boundaries of what humanity could know about space. The Pioneer 10 mission, led by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, was groundbreaking from the start. It marked a turning point in human space exploration, as it was the first spacecraft to travel beyond the orbit of Pluto, venturing into the unknown, well past the outer limits of our understanding of the solar system. But the mission wasn't just about the craft itself, it was about the team that orchestrated its journey. Dr. John Anderson, a key figure in this mission, would later become one of the primary investigators when the Pioneer anomaly began to surface. Known for his meticulous attention to detail and deep understanding of orbital mechanics, Anderson was no stranger to the unexpected. But even he couldn't have anticipated the strange path Pioneer 10 would take as it left our solar system behind. The anomaly, though small at first, continued to baffle him and his colleagues. At first, they thought it was just a glitch in the system. Perhaps there was a slight issue with the spacecraft's propulsion, or perhaps an error in the tracking system. But as the data accumulated and the anomaly persisted, Anderson began to suspect something far more unusual was at play. Could it be that they were missing something fundamental about space? Could the laws they had relied on for centuries simply not apply out there, in the farthest reaches of the cosmos? Anderson wasn't alone in his pursuit for answers. His team at JPL grew increasingly obsessed with solving the mystery. There were heated debates, countless hours spent poring over data, and an ever-growing sense of frustration. Could the anomaly be something as simple as an undetected error in their calculations? Perhaps the spacecraft was not just affected by gravity and solar radiation pressure, but by something else, something they hadn't yet accounted for. But as months passed and more data from Pioneer 11 and even Voyager 1 and 2 began to show similar strange behavior, the team was forced to consider far more exotic explanations. Could this be something beyond the boundaries of known physics? Could the Pioneer anomaly be a clue to a hidden force, something that we've yet to even conceptualize? With every theory they tested, another one emerged, leading them down paths that seemed just as implausible as the last. Some suggested that the anomaly could be a result of dark matter, a mysterious substance that doesn't interact with light but has mass and could, in theory, be influencing the spacecraft's movement. Others speculated about the existence of dark energy, the enigmatic force that appears to be driving the accelerated expansion of the universe. Then there were those who thought perhaps the anomaly was linked to quantum mechanics or even gravity itself behaving in ways we didn't yet understand. But despite the years of research and collaboration with physicists, astronomers, and mathematicians from around the world, the anomaly only seemed to deepen. Each theory seemed to lead to more questions and fewer answers. And all the while, Pioneer 10 drifted farther into the cold void of interstellar space, its message slowly fading, leaving scientists with an unshakable sense of unease. As the years went on, more spacecraft were sent into space with similar goals: to explore the outer edges of the solar system, to push the boundaries of human knowledge, but none of them could replicate the Pioneer anomaly. No spacecraft, no matter how advanced, experienced the same strange behavior as Pioneer 10. This raised an unsettling question: was Pioneer 10's journey truly unique, or was there something about the way it was built, or the moment it was launched, that made it especially vulnerable to these forces? Could it have been something as simple as the trajectory it followed, or was it something deeper, something hidden in the very fabric of space itself? What if Pioneer 10 had crossed paths with an unknown cosmic event or force, a disturbance in the universe's fabric that no one had anticipated? Was this anomaly a one-time event, or was it a symptom of something larger, something that could change everything we know about space and time? But even more perplexing than the anomaly itself was the reaction from the scientific community. While many were obsessed with finding an explanation, there were whispers, unsettling whispers, that some were not as eager to solve the mystery. Were there forces at play that didn't want the truth to come to light? Some speculated that the anomaly could be a sign of something that, if understood, could have massive implications for humanity's future in space. If this was a clue to a deeper, hidden force in the universe, would the powers that be want to risk exposing it? Would governments, space agencies, or even powerful organizations suppress such information if they felt it was too dangerous? Was there a fear of the unknown, a fear of what might happen if the Pioneer anomaly were fully understood? As the years went on, Anderson and his colleagues continued their research, but they were met with resistance, silent, almost imperceptible resistance from higher up. It was as if the mystery itself was being buried, slowly and methodically, by forces unknown. The deeper they dug, the more they began to feel like they were being watched, their every move carefully scrutinized. Was it paranoia, or was there something bigger happening beneath the surface? Then, in 2012, just as the Pioneer 10 spacecraft was about to lose its power and its final signals were sent back to Earth, a strange development occurred. A new team, led by a young, ambitious astrophysicist named Dr. Elizabeth Gray, joined the efforts to solve the mystery of the Pioneer anomaly. Gray was known for her unconventional approach to space science, often questioning established theories and proposing ideas that others considered too radical. But her arrival was met with skepticism. She was a rising star, but her methods were unorthodox, and many questioned whether she could solve something as complex as the Pioneer anomaly. Some even feared that her ideas could disrupt the carefully maintained narrative of space science. After all, if she uncovered something too significant, the ripple effects could be catastrophic. As Dr. Gray dug deeper into the available data, she began to draw connections that others had overlooked. Could the anomaly be tied to something far more sinister than anyone had imagined? Could the spacecraft's strange behavior be the result of an ancient cosmic event, one that had left a ripple in space-time itself? Was it possible that the Pioneer anomaly was not a glitch at all, but rather a clue to a hidden dimension of the universe, one that humanity had yet to even fathom? Theories began to emerge that were far more chilling than anything anyone had considered before. What if the anomaly wasn't just a result of a hidden force in space, but a signal, an invitation, or even a warning from somewhere beyond our understanding? Could the anomaly be connected to a secret, ancient intelligence that had been hiding in the shadows of space for eons? And if so, what would happen if humanity ever discovered it? As Dr. Gray continued her work, her research began to gain traction, but her every move was being watched. She started receiving cryptic messages, warnings not to dig too deep, threats that she might uncover something that no one was ready for. Could these threats be a coincidence, or was someone or something trying to stop her from uncovering the truth? And just when she thought she was closing in on an answer, something unexpected happened. Her research, along with all the data on the Pioneer anomaly, mysteriously disappeared from the records. Every file was erased, every document wiped clean. It was as if someone or something had made sure the truth would never be known. Now, more than ever, the question remains, will the Pioneer anomaly ever be fully explained? Or are there forces at play, hiding the truth from humanity, for reasons we might never understand? And here's the real kicker. Could the Pioneer anomaly be just the beginning? What if the forces responsible are much closer than we think, watching, waiting, and preparing to reveal themselves when the time is right? Keep watching, because the deeper we go, the closer we get to an answer that could change everything. As Dr. Gray continued her investigation into the Pioneer anomaly, the pressure started to build. It wasn't just the mystery of the anomaly that consumed her, it was the growing sense that she was no longer working alone. There were forces at play, lurking just beneath the surface, that seemed determined to stop her from uncovering the truth. It started small, almost imperceptibly. Her emails were occasionally delayed, and files that she had saved on her computer would sometimes go missing without explanation. She chalked it up to technical glitches, nothing more than the occasional quirk of working with old, outdated systems at the lab. But as time went on, these little oddities began to feel less like coincidences and more like deliberate actions. One evening, as Dr. Gray reviewed the latest data, she noticed something unsettling. A critical set of files that contained the most recent analysis of the Pioneer 10 mission had disappeared, completely wiped from the system. She searched through backup drives and even checked with IT, but the files were gone and no one could explain why. Frustrated but determined, she began reaching out to her colleagues for answers, hoping they might have overlooked something, but no one had any answers either. It was as if the files had been erased on purpose. That was when the first warning came. It came in the form of a phone call late one night, the voice on the other end a low, almost distorted whisper. "Stop digging," the voice said. "Some things are better left unknown." Dr. Gray froze, the words sending a chill down her spine. She tried to trace the call, but the number was unlisted, and there was no way to track it back to anyone. The warning felt real, urgent, and it sent a ripple of fear through her. Had someone been monitoring her work? Was someone trying to intimidate her into giving up? And if so, why? The more she thought about it, the more it seemed like the stakes were much higher than she initially realized. But Dr. Gray wasn't one to back down. If anything, the mysterious phone call only strengthened her resolve to get to the bottom of the Pioneer anomaly. She doubled down on her research, even bringing in a trusted colleague, Dr. Mark Hill, a theoretical physicist, to help her track down the missing data. Dr. Hill had been a friend for years, and he was someone she believed she could trust. They had worked together on various projects in the past, and he had always been a valuable ally. But as they dug deeper, something started to feel off. Mark was brilliant, no doubt, but there were moments when his behavior seemed a bit too eager. At times, it felt like he was pushing the investigation in a direction that Dr. Gray hadn't anticipated. He seemed unusually focused on certain areas of research, ones that she hadn't even considered, and at times, he was less interested in the anomaly itself than in what could be gained from understanding it. Dr. Gray couldn't put her finger on it, but a small voice in the back of her mind began to wonder if Mark had ulterior motives. Was he truly there to help her, or was he more interested in something else, something more personal? The doubts gnawed at her, but she needed him. She needed his expertise to solve the puzzle. Then, just as Dr. Gray thought she was starting to make some headway, she received another ominous message. This time, it wasn't a phone call. It was a letter, an old-fashioned, handwritten note that arrived in a manila envelope. The message was simple, almost cryptic. You are not the first to look for answers, but you will be the last. It was signed with a name she didn't recognize, Elliot Blackwood. She couldn't shake the feeling that this name meant something important, but she couldn't quite place it. After hours of research, Dr. Gray found a vague reference to an Elliot Blackwood, an astronomer who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances years ago, shortly after investigating similar anomalies in deep space. Could this be the same person? And if so, what had happened to him? Why had he disappeared, and why was he now sending her cryptic messages? Dr. Gray's curiosity got the best of her, and she began digging into Blackwood's past. The more she uncovered, the more she realized just how tangled the web of secrecy was. Blackwood had worked for a private space research company, and his studies had been closely tied to government-funded missions that, like Pioneer 10, had mysteriously veered off course. Blackwood had been on the verge of a major breakthrough when he vanished. Some speculated that he had uncovered something so dangerous, so world-altering, that he had become a target. But the deeper Dr. Gray dug, the more she started to feel like she was being followed. She noticed unfamiliar cars parked outside her apartment and felt eyes on her as she walked to her car. She couldn't prove it, but the sense of being watched grew stronger with every passing day. Mark had become distant as well, his attitude shifting. He seemed more agitated, more insistent that she focus on specific elements of the research, elements that seemed to divert her attention from the anomaly itself. Could he have been involved in Blackwood's disappearance? Had he known more about the dangers of uncovering the truth than he was letting on? And then, just when it seemed like things couldn't get more complicated, something happened that changed everything. While reviewing the final data set she had retrieved from the Pioneer mission, Dr. Gray stumbled upon a hidden file, one that hadn't been in the original records. It was labeled simply, "Classified, for eyes only." She hesitated but opened it anyway. The file contained information so explosive that it could rewrite everything humanity thought it knew about space. But just as she was about to make the connections that could reveal the truth behind the anomaly, her computer screen flickered, and everything shut down. When it powered back up, the file was gone, vanished without a trace. Had someone been watching her every move? Had someone erased the most crucial piece of evidence just to keep her from unveiling the truth? She didn't know, but one thing was certain. She was getting closer to something much bigger than she ever anticipated. Someone was desperate to stop her. Someone had been keeping secrets for far too long. And now, Dr. Gray had to decide, was she willing to risk everything to uncover the hidden forces at play? Or would the truth remain buried, just as it had been for so many years? The path ahead was uncertain, and as she stared at the empty screen, Dr. Gray realized that the most dangerous part of this journey might not be the answers she was searching for, but the ones who would stop at nothing to make sure she never found them. The deeper Dr. Gray ventured into the mystery surrounding the Pioneer anomaly, the more she began to realize that the forces working against her weren't just trying to erase the truth. They were actively trying to manipulate it. As she struggled to make sense of the missing files, the cryptic messages, and the ever-growing list of suspicious events, she found herself questioning not only her colleagues, but also the very foundations of the research itself. What had once seemed like an innocent scientific endeavor was now spiraling into something far more sinister, and the stakes were rising with every new discovery. It wasn't just her life that was at risk anymore, it was the lives of those closest to her. One night, while Dr. Gray was away from her office, her trusted assistant, Rachel, received an unexpected visit. Rachel, a quiet but sharp young woman, had been working with Dr. Gray for the past 2 years and was always loyal, always diligent in her duties. Rachel had no idea what she was about to get involved in when she first joined the team, but she had grown close to Dr. Gray over time, becoming not just a colleague, but a confidant. Dr. Gray had trusted Rachel with sensitive information, and Rachel had never questioned her boss's instincts. But as Rachel sat alone in the lab that evening, going over the latest data, the door to her office opened with a soft creak. She turned around, expecting to see Dr. Gray, but instead, standing in the doorway was a figure she didn't recognize. The man was tall, dressed in a dark suit, and his face was obscured by the shadows. He didn't say a word as he stepped inside, but the air in the room shifted in an instant, heavy with unspoken tension. "Rachel," the man said finally, his voice smooth and controlled, "I think you've seen things you shouldn't have." His words were calm, almost too calm, and they sent a shiver down Rachel's spine. She was about to speak, but he raised a hand, silencing her. "I need you to understand something. This is bigger than you or Dr. Gray. There are forces at work here that neither of you are prepared to confront. You've both been digging too deep, asking too many questions, and I'm afraid it's only a matter of time before they come after you." Rachel felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She didn't know who this man was or what he wanted, but there was an undeniable menace in his presence. The way he spoke, it was as though he knew everything. "You need to stop," he continued, his eyes glinting coldly in the dim light. "Both of you. For your own safety." Rachel's heart raced as she tried to process what was happening. She had no idea who this man was, but something told her that he wasn't just a random stranger. He knew far too much. And as she glanced nervously at her desk, she realized that some of the data she had been working on was now missing, vanished, just like the files Dr. Gray had lost. The man stepped closer, leaning in with a dark smile. "Tell Dr. Gray to let it go," he whispered, his breath cold against her ear. "The truth is dangerous, and it's not meant to be uncovered." Rachel couldn't bring herself to respond. She was frozen in fear, unsure of what to do next. The man turned and walked out of the room without another word, leaving Rachel standing there, trembling, trying to make sense of the encounter. The sense of dread lingered long after he was gone, and Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. She knew she had to tell Dr. Gray, but as she sat down to compose herself, she realized that the messages weren't just aimed at Dr. Gray anymore. She was in this too. She had become a target, just like her boss, and whoever was behind these threats was willing to go to great lengths to ensure the truth stayed hidden. Meanwhile, Dr. Gray was dealing with her own set of challenges. She couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that had settled in her gut ever since the strange encounter with the mysterious phone call. The more she thought about it, the more it seemed that the people trying to stop her from discovering the truth weren't acting alone. Whoever had been behind the disappearance of Blackwood, the missing files, and now the warning messages, had an agenda far greater than simply protecting their own secrets. It was as though the pioneer Anomaly itself had become a tool in a much larger game, one with stakes far beyond the scope of her research. Just as she was piecing together this unsettling realization, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. A colleague from another university had reached out to her, a man named Professor Thomas Hale, who had recently published a controversial paper on the same anomaly. His work had been dismissed by the scientific community at large, but something in his findings caught Dr. Gray's attention. Hale had uncovered a set of coordinates buried deep within the data, coordinates that seemed to point to a location far outside the normal bounds of the Pioneer 10 mission. It was a place that, if true, could redefine everything humanity thought it knew about space and time. But when Dr. Gray tried to follow up with Hale, the call went unanswered. No one had heard from him in days, and when Dr. Gray dug further, she discovered that his research had been abruptly pulled from the public domain. It was as if he had never existed. The only trace left was a cryptic message sent to her email. "They're watching. Get out before it's too late." As Dr. Gray absorbed this new information, she couldn't shake the feeling that Hale's disappearance wasn't just a coincidence. It wasn't just his life that was at risk. It was the information he had uncovered. The stakes were higher than ever, and she couldn't help but wonder who, or what was pulling the strings behind the scenes. Were they connected to the mysterious figure who had threatened Rachel? Was it possible that Hale had uncovered something so dangerous, so world-altering, that he had been silenced to keep it from spreading? With each new piece of evidence, Dr. Gray found herself drawn deeper into a web of conspiracy and deception. And yet, with every new question, there seemed to be even more unanswered ones, more dangers lurking just beyond her grasp. She was no longer just uncovering the truth about the Pioneer Anomaly. She was uncovering a vast, hidden network of influence that could change the course of human history. But as the mystery deepened, so too did the risks. Whoever was behind all of this wanted to make sure Dr. Gray never found the answers. And now, as the walls seemed to be closing in on her, she had to decide, was she willing to risk everything to uncover the truth? Or was the cost of knowing too high? Just as she reached for her phone to call Rachel, a sudden noise in the hallway startled her. Footsteps, faint but deliberate, were approaching. Someone was coming. The cold, oppressive air in the office seemed to thicken as Dr. Gray's fingers trembled on the phone. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The footsteps outside her door were no longer faint. They were unmistakable, deliberate, echoing down the narrow hallway with an eerie finality. Her pulse quickened as her hand hovered over the phone, her thoughts racing. Who was out there? Was it someone following her? Someone sent to silence her like they had done to Professor Hale? Or was it someone else entirely, someone closer to her than she realized? Her breath caught in her throat when the knock came. It was soft at first, then louder, more insistent. She wasn't sure if it was fear or a sudden rush of adrenaline that drove her to stand, her legs shaky as she moved cautiously toward the door. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat like a countdown. Should she open the door? Should she try to escape through the back exit? But before she could make up her mind, the door handle turned, slowly, deliberately. It wasn't a knock anymore. Whoever it was, they had a key. A chill ran through Dr. Gray as the door creaked open, and there stood Rachel, her face pale, her eyes wide with panic. She didn't speak, only stepped inside quickly, her gaze darting nervously over her shoulder as if she feared someone might be watching. She shut the door behind her with a soft click, locking it instantly. Rachel's breath was ragged, her eyes full of terror. "It's happening, Dr. Gray," she whispered, her voice barely audible. They've taken him." Dr. Gray's mind raced. Taken who? She barely had time to process the words before Rachel continued. Thomas Hale. I went to his office to check on him, and it was like he had never been there. Everything was gone, his desk, his files, everything. Rachel paused, her lips trembling. And I found something else. Something terrifying. Dr. Gray's stomach twisted in knots. What do you mean? She asked, her voice cracking slightly despite her best efforts to remain calm. What did you find? Rachel took a deep breath, fighting to steady herself. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, crumpled envelope. It was left on his desk. It was addressed to you. Dr. Gray's hands were cold as she took the envelope. Her fingers fumbled with the edge as she opened it, revealing a single sheet of paper. The words were written in a hurried, jagged hand, the ink smudged in places, as though the writer was trying to finish before time ran out. It read simply, "You're next. They will come for you. There's no way out." A chill ran down Dr. Gray's spine as she read the message, the weight of its meaning settling over her like a physical force. She looked up from the note to find Rachel staring at her, her eyes wide with fear, pleading for some sort of reassurance that everything would be okay. But Dr. Gray couldn't give her that reassurance. Not anymore. Something deep inside her knew that this wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. Someone was hunting them, and they wouldn't stop until they had destroyed everything Dr. Gray had worked for. Rachel's hands were trembling now as she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dr. Gray, I think they're watching us. I heard something, footsteps, shadows in the hall outside. And then the message. They know. They know everything we've been working on." Dr. Gray's mind raced, but the fear, the rising panic, was clouding her thoughts. She tried to steady herself, tried to focus on the facts, but the gnawing sense of impending doom made it impossible. She knew, in that moment, that she couldn't trust anyone, not even the people closest to her. It was becoming clear that the forces behind the mystery of the Pioneer Anomaly weren't just faceless, distant threats. They were right here, right now, closing in on her from all sides. The silence in the room seemed to grow louder as the weight of the situation settled over them. Dr. Gray felt trapped, cornered, like a prey animal sensing the hunter's presence, but unable to escape. Every moment that passed made the world outside the office feel more hostile, more dangerous. It was as though the walls were closing in, each creak of the floorboards, each shadow flickering on the walls, carrying the weight of 100 unanswered questions. Rachel suddenly stepped back, her eyes widening as if she had seen something Dr. Gray had not. "There's someone outside," she gasped, her voice rising in panic. I saw them through the window. They're watching us. They're waiting." Dr. Gray's heart slammed against her ribcage as she spun toward the window, but when she looked, there was nothing. Only the dark, empty street. Her mind was playing tricks on her, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe the terror had already begun to distort her perception of reality. Her fingers pressed against the cool glass, her breath fogging up the window as she scanned the darkened street below. But it was no use. No one was there. At least, not that she could see. She turned back to Rachel, but her assistant was already backing away, her face pale with fear. "I don't know what to do," Rachel whispered, her voice shaking. "What if we're not safe here? What if they already know everything?" Dr. Gray felt the weight of Rachel's fear settle deep in her own chest. The walls were closing in, but this time, it wasn't just about the truth. It was about survival. And no matter how much she tried to cling to the idea that this was still just an academic pursuit, she knew, deep down, that the world had changed. They were no longer just chasing the mysteries of space. They were chasing shadows, and those shadows were coming for them. As she turned away from Rachel, Dr. Gray's mind raced, trying to find a way out, trying to think of someone, anyone who might still be on her side. But it was too late for that. It was becoming clear that there was no one she could trust. And with that realization, the full weight of the danger they were in came crashing down. Someone was following them. Someone had already silenced Hale. And now they were coming for them too. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. Dr. Gray froze, her blood running cold, as the sound reverberated through the small office. This time it wasn't a soft, hesitant knock. It was loud, urgent, and insistent. She glanced at Rachel, who was visibly shaking, her face pale as she stepped back against the wall. The knock came again, this time followed by a voice from the other side of the door. A voice Dr. Gray recognized. "Dr. Gray," the voice said, calm and steady, yet filled with a terrifying authority. "You need to open the door.
Now.
You're in danger." Dr. Gray's heart raced, but she didn't move. The room felt suffocating. She wasn't sure if the voice belonged to a friend or a foe. What she did know was that the walls were closing in. They were being hunted. And there was no escape, Dr. Gray's hand shook as she reached for the door, her mind a blur of confusion and fear. The voice on the other side was familiar, but there was something about it that sent a wave of unease crashing over her. The urgency in the knock and the calm authority in the voice, it all felt too rehearsed, too controlled. She glanced at Rachel, who was still pressed against the wall, her eyes wide with terror, and suddenly, Dr. Gray wasn't sure who to trust. Her instinct screamed to open the door, but her gut told her to stay back, to run. But run to where? The walls were closing in, and escape seemed impossible. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and placed her hand on the door handle, her mind racing as the seconds stretched into eternity. "Dr. Gray, you need to open the door," the voice repeated, more insistent now, but still coldly calm. "We can help you, but you have to trust us." There was no hesitation as she opened the door just a crack, her eyes narrowing, searching for any sign of what was really happening. Standing there, silhouetted in the dim hallway light, was someone she never expected to see, someone who, just days ago, she would have sworn was on her side. Dr. Gray's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the man standing before her. Agent Cole. He had been her closest contact in the government, the one who had helped her navigate the complex labyrinth of data and red tape as they dug deeper into the mystery of the Pioneer Anomaly. But now, standing in front of her, his face seemed different. Harder. More calculating. Agent Cole. Dr. Gray's voice barely rose above a whisper, the disbelief making it harder to speak. What are you doing here? Cole's eyes flickered to Rachel, then back to Dr. Gray, his expression unreadable. He took a step closer, his voice dropping low. I'm here to fix things, Dr. Gray. To clean up the mess you've gotten yourself into. Dr. Gray's heart slammed in her chest. Fix things, she repeated, her voice rising in confusion. What are you talking about? You were supposed to help us. To help me. Rachel, still standing in the background, stepped forward with a look of disbelief. Agent Cole, you can't be serious. You're the one who... Cole held up a hand, silencing her with a single, sharp gesture. His eyes never left Dr. Gray's face as he spoke again, his tone cool and detached, as though he was reading lines from a script. It was never supposed to go this far. This whole operation was meant to keep things under control, Dr. Gray. The Pioneer Anomaly, it's bigger than you think. It always has been. And now, it's too late to undo the damage. Dr. Gray felt a rush of confusion, and anger flooded through her. What do you mean? What's really going on? The anomalies, the strange readings, Hale's disappearance, it all points to something far beyond just scientific curiosity. This isn't just about data anymore. This is real. This is something we can't ignore. Cole's face hardened as he stepped closer, lowering his voice even more. That's where you're wrong. It never was about the anomaly. It was always about control. About ensuring certain things stay buried, hidden from the public. People like Hale and others who got too close, they weren't just researching space. They were getting too close to things that no one is meant to understand. The weight of his words hit Dr. Gray like a ton of bricks. What are you saying? She asked, the words barely escaping her throat. What's hidden? What are you covering up? Cole's eyes flickered again, and for the briefest of moments, there was something in his gaze, something almost like regret. But it was gone before Dr. Gray could fully process it. You don't understand, he said, voice steady, but his eyes betraying something darker. It's not just an anomaly. It's a warning. Dr. Gray felt the room spin as a sudden, horrible realization dawned on her. Everything she thought she knew, everything she had believed in, was unraveling before her eyes. She had trusted Cole. She had trusted the government. But now, she was beginning to see that the world she had been working so tirelessly to understand was far more sinister than she had ever imagined. The Pioneer Anomaly wasn't just an event in space. It was a signal, a message, perhaps even a threat. But from whom? And why were they hiding it? Rachel stepped forward again, her voice shaking. Agent Cole, are you saying that Hale, he knew too much? And you? I'm saying you're both in far over your heads, Cole interrupted, his voice low, almost regretful. I should have stopped you sooner. But now it's too late. They've already seen what you found. And now you're marked. You need to stop digging, Dr. Gray. You need to stop searching for answers. You're playing with forces you can't begin to understand. Dr. Gray's mind reeled as she tried to process everything. For the first time, she felt truly alone, betrayed by the very people she had relied on to navigate the unknown. Her eyes flickered to Rachel, whose face was a mask of shock and confusion. Dr. Gray tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She needed answers. But now, everything she had believed in, the purpose of the research, the motives behind the government's interest, was crumbling before her eyes. I'm not stopping, Dr. Gray finally whispered, her voice filled with a quiet determination. I'm going to finish what we started. But as soon as the words left her mouth, a sudden noise shattered the tension in the room. The sound of something crashing to the floor, loud, deliberate, and unmistakable. Dr. Gray's heart raced as she spun toward the source of the noise. Her breath caught in her throat as she saw what had fallen, a small, glass vial. It was the same one she had seen in Hale's office, the one she had thought was just a meaningless object, a piece of equipment. But now, With the lid cracked open and the liquid inside glowing faintly, Dr. Gray realized the truth. It wasn't a vial of research material. It was a message. And it had been left there for a reason. Cole's eyes flickered to the vial, his expression tightening as he stepped back. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he said, his voice low and cold. "You've opened Pandora's box. And now, there's no going back." Dr. Gray's mind raced as the reality of what was unfolding hit her like a wave. The vial, the glowing liquid, the cryptic warning, it was all connected to the mystery she had been chasing. But the question was no longer just about the pioneer Anomaly. It was about who was controlling it, and why they were willing to go to such extreme lengths to stop her from uncovering the truth. And as she turned back to Cole, her eyes filled with both fear and defiance, she realized something even more terrifying. She wasn't just chasing the truth anymore. She was running out of time. Dr. Gray stood frozen, her hand still hovering over the vial as the words echoed in her mind. Pandora's box, Cole had said, and it felt like the weight of those words was crushing her from all sides. Her heart raced, her thoughts in a whirlwind as she tried to process everything that had just happened. Everything she had worked for, the months, the years of research, now felt insignificant in comparison to the enormity of what was at stake. It wasn't just her career or her reputation anymore. It was her life, Rachel's life, and potentially the lives of countless others. The truth she had been desperately seeking was far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined, and with each passing second, it felt like the walls were closing in. Rachel, still wide-eyed and trembling, stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does it mean, Dr. Gray? What is that thing? What are we really dealing with here?" Her face was filled with confusion, but beneath the fear, Dr. Gray could see something else, something more visceral, more desperate. Rachel was scared, but there was a hunger for answers in her eyes, a need to understand that mirrored Dr. Gray's own. They were in this together now, whether they wanted to be or not. But it was no longer just about science. The stakes had shifted, and the cost of discovery was now painfully clear. Dr. Gray's gaze shifted from Rachel to the vial in her hand. She knew what it meant, what it symbolized. The vial was proof that whatever was happening was real, and it was too dangerous to ignore. But the deeper she dug, the more questions arose. Who was behind all of this? Who had placed the vial in Hale's office? And why had it been so carefully concealed, hidden from everyone, even from the people who had the power to uncover the truth? The government's interest in the anomaly now seemed to take on a more sinister tone, and Cole's sudden appearance only deepened the mystery. She had trusted him. She had confided in him, shared everything she knew. And now, he was the one warning her to stop. He was the one who had been part of the cover-up all along. "I'm not stopping," Dr. Gray whispered to herself, though she wasn't sure who she was convincing more, Cole, Rachel, or herself. Rachel took another step forward, her expression hardening. "You have to tell me what's really going on, Dr. Gray. I can't keep guessing. I've trusted you from the beginning, but everything's falling apart. People are getting hurt. Hale, he's gone and we don't know why. The government, Cole, they're hiding something. And I don't think we can ignore it anymore. We can't turn back." Dr. Gray looked at Rachel, seeing the raw emotion on her face, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she felt the weight of their shared struggle. Rachel wasn't just a colleague anymore. She was a friend, a close ally in this dangerous game they were playing. But Dr. Gray knew the stakes. She knew that by continuing down this path, they risked everything. Everything they had fought for, everything they had built. And the choice she faced now wasn't just about her. It was about the lives of everyone she cared about. And that's when the ultimatum came, swift and unforgiving. Her phone buzzed, and the screen lit up with a message from an unknown number. She hesitated for a moment, knowing it couldn't be good. With a trembling hand, she unlocked the phone and read the message. "Stop now, or you'll regret it. You've been warned. If you don't listen, there will be consequences." Her breath caught in her throat. The message was clear, but its implications were far darker than just a warning. Someone wanted her to stop. Someone powerful. Someone who had been watching her every move. She felt the weight of the threat sink into her chest like a heavy stone. Was it just Cole, trying to scare her into backing down? Or was it someone else, someone with far more power and far more to lose? Dr. Gray slammed her phone down on the table, her hands shaking with a mix of fear and rage. She couldn't back down. She wouldn't. But the fear for Rachel, for the people she loved, began to gnaw at her from the inside. They were already in too deep. And now, it wasn't just her life that was on the line, it was Rachel's too. And even though the fear was paralyzing, Dr. Gray knew there was no turning back. The truth was too important. But how far was she willing to go to uncover it? And at what cost? A sudden knock at the door shattered the tense silence, and Dr. Gray's heart nearly stopped in her chest. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up as the door handle turned, and she knew with chilling certainty that they weren't alone anymore. Someone else had arrived. Someone who might have answers, or someone who could bury them forever. She reached for her phone again, but before she could speak, Rachel grabbed her arm. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice low and terrified. Dr. Gray swallowed hard, her mind racing as the weight of her decision pressed down on her.
She had to keep going.
She had to see this through to the end. But she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was waiting for them on the other side of that door, whatever truth they were about to uncover, would change everything. And it might destroy them both in the process. The knock came again, louder this time, more forceful. "Dr. Gray," the voice called out from the other side. "You need to come with us.
Now."
It's over." She didn't know who was on the other side. She didn't know what they wanted. But she knew one thing for certain. No matter what choice she made now, there would be no going back. The trap was set, and she had just walked right into it. Dr. Gray's heart hammered in her chest as she exchanged one final look with Rachel, the weight of everything hanging in the air between them. The choice was hers. Would she risk everything, including her life and the safety of the people she loved, to uncover the truth? Or would she walk away, accepting the consequences of silence and ignorance? Before she could answer, the door opened, and everything changed. The door creaked open with a force that made Dr. Gray's heart skip a beat. Her breath caught in her throat as the figure standing in the doorway was revealed, and for a moment, she felt time freeze. Standing there was someone she had trusted, a face she had known for years. It was Dr. Rachel Hale's father, Gregory Hale, a man whose reputation in the scientific community was beyond reproach. He had always been a mentor, a guiding figure, someone who had helped shape her career and guided her through the toughest parts of her research. But now, seeing him standing in the doorway, his cold eyes meeting hers, a sickening realization began to settle in. The man who had given her advice, praised her work, and even worked alongside her was standing before her like a stranger. A man whose motives were now deeply suspect. "Dr. Gray," Gregory Hale said, his voice low, almost mechanical, "I think it's time we had a serious conversation." There was something in his tone that made Dr. Gray's blood run cold. It wasn't just the suddenness of his appearance or the chilling authority in his voice, it was the look in his eyes. Something was terribly wrong. Behind him, the shadows of two armed men loomed, their silhouettes blocking the dim light from the hallway. They were dressed in black, their faces concealed, their presence a stark reminder that things had escalated far beyond anything Dr. Gray had expected. She instinctively reached for the vial she had been holding earlier, but it was gone. Rachel must have hidden it while she was distracted.
Good.
But now, in front of her stood a man who had been part of the very system she was trying to unravel, someone who had lied, manipulated, and, it seemed, betrayed her all along. Dr. Gray's mind raced as the shock of betrayal washed over her. How long had Hale been involved in this? Was he part of the cover-up from the start, or had he been manipulated into it as well? But no matter how she tried to justify it, the undeniable truth was right in front of her. Gregory Hale was not the man she had thought he was. He was part of the conspiracy, the very conspiracy that had cost them everything. And now, standing face to face with him, the scale of what was happening hit her harder than ever before. This was bigger than just a research project gone wrong. It wasn't about science anymore. It was about power, control, and something far darker than she had ever imagined. Rachel's voice was shaking as she stepped forward. "What is this, Gregory? What do you want from us?" The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with fear and confusion. Gregory's lips twitched into a tight smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Rachel," he said. "But you were always going to find out eventually." He turned his gaze to Dr. Gray. "And as for you, Dr. Gray, I never thought you would get this far. But I suppose it doesn't matter anymore. The wheels are already in motion. You're both too late." Dr. Gray's stomach churned. The urgency was palpable now. It wasn't just a game of science. It was something more dangerous, more insidious. The weight of the conspiracy she had uncovered was pressing down on her with suffocating force, and she realized with cold clarity that they had underestimated the enemy. This was not just a matter of one man or even a handful of people. This went much deeper, much farther than she had ever believed. It was a network of influence, power, and corruption that reached into places she hadn't even thought to look. "We've been playing with forces we don't understand," Hale continued, his tone now laced with a sinister calm. "And we've come too far to turn back now. This isn't about saving the world. This is about control, about reshaping everything we know about space, time, and reality itself." Dr. Gray's mind was spinning as she absorbed his words. Control. That was the key. The anomaly they had been investigating wasn't just an unexplained phenomenon. It was something that had the potential to shift the balance of power on a global scale. And the people involved in this conspiracy weren't just scientists and researchers. They were politicians, military officials, and influential figures who had been pulling strings in the shadows for years, orchestrating a plan that would alter the course of humanity's future forever. Rachel stepped back, her face pale, her breath quickening.
No.
"This is crazy. You're not making sense. We've been following this anomaly for months, and you're telling us now that it's all some kind of experiment? What the hell is really going on, Gregory?" Gregory's face softened for a brief moment, a fleeting glimpse of something almost human before the cold mask returned. "You never understood the bigger picture, Rachel. No one does. But you will. Soon enough. The truth you're searching for is already in motion. The question is, do you want to be part of it? Or will you fight against it, only to lose everything?" Dr. Gray's heart raced, the stakes clearer now than ever before. This wasn't just about finding answers. It was about survival. The moment she had discovered the truth, she had become a target. But now, it wasn't just her life on the line. It was Rachel's. It was everyone's. The world she had once known was collapsing, and she was standing in the center of it, unable to turn away. But then, the real shock came. From the back of the room, another figure stepped forward. This one, unfamiliar at first, but then Dr. Gray's eyes widened in recognition. It was Cole, the same man who had warned her to stop. He was the one who had told her it was too dangerous to dig deeper. The one who had tried to distance himself from her, despite everything they had been through together. And now, here he was, standing by Gregory Hale's side, a cold, almost calculating expression on his face. "No," Dr. Gray whispered, her voice breaking. You've been involved this whole time?"
Cole didn't respond.
His eyes met hers with a hollow look, and for the first time, she saw the truth. He wasn't just an ally who had been trying to protect her. He had been playing a game of his own, one that she couldn't comprehend. But the realization hit her hard. The conspiracy she had uncovered wasn't just a series of isolated events. It was a carefully orchestrated operation, one that involved more people than she could ever imagine. And Cole had been a part of it from the very beginning. "Dr. Gray," Cole said, his voice eerily calm, "you had your chance to stop. But now it's too late. There's no going back. The wheels are already turning." The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Dr. Gray looked at Rachel, who was trembling beside her, the weight of the situation dawning on her as well. They had no allies left. No one to turn to. The truth was out there, but it had come at a price that might cost them everything they had ever cared about. And then, just as Dr. Gray felt her mind begin to spiral into despair, Gregory Hale spoke again, his words hanging in the air like a final sentence. It's time to decide. You can join us, and together, we'll shape the future. Or you can keep fighting and die for your efforts. The choice was theirs. But as the door to the unknown slowly closed behind them, they both knew one thing for sure. There was no going back. Not anymore. The cold metal door to the underground facility slid open with a low, ominous groan, and Dr. Gray stepped into the heart of the conspiracy she had been chasing for so long. The dim lights flickered above, casting long shadows on the cold concrete walls. Her breath came in ragged bursts, her mind racing as she tried to make sense of everything that had led her here. The final piece of the puzzle was within her grasp, but the cost had been unimaginable. She had lost her trust in everyone she thought she could rely on, and now, standing in the depths of the operation, she could feel the weight of everything she had uncovered pressed down on her shoulders. Gregory Hale's voice echoed in her head, the words still haunting her as they reverberated in the silence of the facility. You can join us, or you can die for your efforts. Those were his final words to her, the ultimatum that had driven her into the heart of this place. He was here somewhere, waiting for her, watching her. He had orchestrated everything, from the strange anomaly in space to the countless people who had been silenced along the way. She had no illusions left. He was the mastermind, the one pulling all the strings. But there was something deeper now, something that she hadn't fully understood until this moment. Her footsteps echoed as she moved deeper into the facility, the air growing colder with each step. She had come here to confront him, to expose the truth, but now she felt the weight of it all crashing down. The truth was dangerous. The truth was power. And the truth, as she had discovered, was far darker than she could have ever imagined. The door at the end of the hallway creaked open, revealing a vast chamber. In the center, a massive machine hummed with an eerie power. It was the culmination of years of research, the twisted invention that had brought them all to this point. The anomaly wasn't just a space-time irregularity, it was a gateway, a force capable of distorting reality itself. The machine was the key, and Gregory Hale was its keeper. He had used the research to manipulate the very fabric of space and time, pushing the boundaries of what humanity could comprehend. But now it was about to come to an end, one way or another. And there he was, standing in front of the machine, his back to her. His posture was relaxed, but Dr. Gray knew better than to think he wasn't dangerous. He had already proven he would do anything to protect his secret. You're too late, Dr. Gray. Hale's voice was calm, almost resigned, as he turned to face her. His eyes, cold and calculating, betrayed no emotion as he studied her. This was always going to happen. You had to find out eventually. Dr. Gray clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. She wasn't backing down now. She had come too far. You're playing with forces you don't understand, she said, her voice steady despite the fear rising in her chest. This is madness. It's not about science anymore. It's about power. You've destroyed lives, manipulated people, and for what? To open a door to something that can't be controlled. Hale's lips twitched into something that could almost be considered a smile. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about control. It's about evolution. Humanity's next step. You're too small-minded to see it, but the truth is out there. We're on the verge of something incredible. And you could have been part of it. But now it's too late. The machine behind him began to hum louder, its lights flickering as though it was coming to life. Dr. Gray could feel the pull, the strange gravity of the room warping around her. She was standing on the precipice of something she couldn't comprehend, something that could change everything. And Hale was inviting her to cross that threshold, to embrace the unknown and everything that came with it. But she knew better. The truth was too dangerous to be unleashed. The consequences of Hale's actions could tear apart the very fabric of reality. You're wrong, she said, her voice shaking with a mix of anger and desperation. I'm not going to let you do this. Not to me. Not to anyone. Hale's expression darkened. You think you can stop this? You think you have the power to stop progress? You're nothing but a fly caught in the web. And now, you're going to be a part of this whether you like it or not. He reached out toward the machine, his fingers hovering just above a series of buttons. But before he could activate it, the ground beneath them trembled, and the lights flickered wildly. Something was wrong. Something had gone wrong with the machine. Dr. Gray's heart skipped a beat as she realized what was happening. The anomaly wasn't just a tool to manipulate space and time. It was feeding on the energy around it, growing stronger with every passing moment. It was spiraling out of control, and Hale, despite his years of research, was powerless to stop it now. "You've made a mistake," Dr. Gray whispered, fear creeping into her voice for the first time. "It's not just an experiment anymore. It's a weapon." The machine crackled with energy, its hum now a deafening roar as the very air around them seemed to warp and twist. Hale's eyes widened, the realization hitting him too late. He reached for the controls, but the system was beyond his control. It was as though the machine had developed a mind of its own, growing more erratic and unstable by the second. Dr. Gray took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized just how close they were to disaster. This wasn't just about exposing a conspiracy anymore. It was about survival. The room around them seemed to bend, the walls warping as the machine reached its breaking point. The truth was no longer a secret. It was a force that could tear apart everything. And then, in the midst of the chaos, there was a sharp, piercing sound, a scream of pure terror that echoed through the room. It was Hale. But before Dr. Gray could react, the ground shook violently, throwing her off balance. She stumbled, her vision spinning as the world around her seemed to fracture. For a brief moment, everything went silent. The hum of the machine ceased. The lights flickered one last time before going out completely. Dr. Gray lay on the cold floor, gasping for breath, her body aching. But as her vision cleared, she saw it, the final twist she had never expected. Gregory Hale was gone. In his place, standing amidst the wreckage of the machine, was a figure she thought she'd never see again, Cole. His face was grim, but there was something else in his eyes. Something that told her everything had changed. "I didn't think you'd make it," Cole said, his voice low and strained. "But now, we have a new problem." The final twist had just begun. The mystery wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The aftermath of the chaos that had unfolded left Dr. Gray standing at the precipice of something she couldn't quite understand. The world around her had shifted in ways she could never have predicted, and yet, in the quiet that followed, she felt a strange sense of finality. Cole, standing in the wreckage of the ruined machine, was not the man she had once trusted. The truth about him, like the truth about everything else, was more complicated than she could have imagined. The realization settled in like a weight on her chest. He had been working against her from the very beginning, a shadow figure in the conspiracy she thought she was controlling. And yet, somehow, his involvement had been as much a product of circumstance as choice. The machine had consumed everyone it touched, pulling them into a dance they couldn't escape. The people who had become entangled in this web had been mere pawns, caught in a system much bigger than they could ever have understood. Now, with the machine gone and Hale gone with it, the pieces had scattered. It was over. Or so she thought. Her mind raced as she looked at Cole, standing silently amidst the destruction, his face hard but somehow empty. He had always been the enigma in her life, the one who had both supported her and betrayed her. She had wanted answers from him, needed them to understand why everything had unfolded the way it did. But now, standing there, she realized the answers didn't matter. There was no clear path forward, no resolution that would ever satisfy the haunting questions that had followed her through this entire ordeal. She had uncovered the truth, at least the parts of it she could understand, but the truth wasn't clean. It wasn't a neat little package that could be closed and forgotten. It was like a storm that would never truly end, echoing through her thoughts long after the wind had died down. Cole's voice broke through the silence, his tone distant, as though he, too, was grappling with the weight of what had just happened. "You can walk away, you know," he said, his words slow, deliberate. "This doesn't have to be your fight anymore. You can leave, forget all of this, and try to move on. You've done your part." Dr. Gray swallowed hard, the words hanging in the air between them.
There was truth in them.
She had done her part. She had exposed the conspiracy. She had seen the machine destroy everything, including the people who had once been her allies.
But there was more to it than that.
She couldn't just walk away. Not when there was still a lingering question that needed to be answered. The anomaly, the strange forces at play, they hadn't been stopped. The machine was gone, but what about the consequences? The ripple effect from everything that had happened. How deep did it go? Could she truly just leave it all behind and let the world move forward without ever knowing the full truth of what had been unleashed? I can't, Dr. Gray replied, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to remain steady. Not yet. Not until I know, not until I understand what really happened, what we've done. Cole didn't argue, just nodded, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite place. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was resignation. Or maybe it was something darker. But there was something in the way he stood there that told her the final chapter of this story was far from written. The machine was gone. Hale was gone. But the consequences of what had been done, the meddling with forces no one fully understood, were only just beginning to unfold. They left the facility together, stepping into a world that was suddenly much larger than either of them had realized. The sky above seemed endless, as if it had opened up to reveal the vastness of the unknown. But despite the weight of everything that had happened, there was still a strange sense of peace settling over Dr. Gray. She had made it through, and she had uncovered the truth. But the world she had stepped into was different now. Her understanding of space, of time, of reality itself, everything had changed. And as they drove away from the wreckage, her thoughts lingered on the question that had always been there, but had never fully been answered. What if this was only the beginning? The truth they had uncovered, the anomaly that had started it all, it wasn't just a glitch in the fabric of space. It was a doorway, one that led to something far beyond their comprehension. And despite everything she had learned, there was still so much left to explore. The feeling of unease grew within her, a whisper at the back of her mind. They had closed one chapter, yes, but what lay beyond the horizon was far from over. The strange forces they had tampered with had only been temporarily contained, and the real impact had yet to be felt. As she looked out the window, the world stretching out before her, Dr. Gray felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. The truth was still out there, hidden in the spaces between what they had learned and what they had yet to discover. There was no escaping it, and as much as she wanted to leave it all behind, she couldn't. Because, deep down, she knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of something much bigger. Something she couldn't yet understand. And that, perhaps, was the most unsettling truth of all. The screen faded to black, the sound of the wind filling the silence. The question remained, what lies beyond the anomaly? And with that, the story left the audience with one final, lingering thought. The mystery was never truly over. It had only just begun.